study of psychic phenomena continues at research facilities such as the Institute of Noetic Sciences. The Institute was the brainchild of astronaut and Freemason Edgar Mitchell, who went to the moon with Apollo 14 in 1971. While in space, Mitchell conducted some unofficial ESP experiments with some friends on Earth. On his return home, he had a life-changing experience.
Edgar basically had an epiphany coming back from the moon. He looked at planet Earth and recognizing that a lot of the conflict was a construction of our consciousness and our worldview. He had a profound sense of unity, like the molecules in his body were connecting him to the solar system, that we were all part of a kind of entangled whole.
This experience inspired Mitchell to create the Institute of Noetic Sciences, dedicated to the study of the human mind and its potential. In The Lost Symbol, the noetic scientist attempts to determine the weight of the soul in order to confirm its physical reality. This is actually based on real-life experiments.
Early on, when scientists were trying to actually measure consciousness or the soul, they actually set up an experiment where they tried to measure and weigh the body before and after death, with the notion that somehow they were weighing the soul. Trying to weigh the soul is something that isn't considered to be a reliable outcome measure anymore. But what people have been trying to do is develop sort of a case for the notion that consciousness may be more than just physical.
Brown's fictional scientist believes her research shows that psychic phenomena such as telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, and mind over matter are real. So do researchers here at the Institute of Noetic Sciences.
When you look at all of the data from each of these classes of experiments, you find very strong statistical evidence that not only is there a real effect, but it is repeatable. And that's really the key in science. It's repeatable by independent laboratories.
Dan Brown's noetic scientist claims group thought, as in prayer groups or healing circles, can have profound effects. In the real world, noetic science has studied the power of prayer and group consciousness to effect change. Unlike the book's depiction, in the real world, the results are inconclusive.
So I think at this point, more research is absolutely needed because it is so widely practiced. And to simply dismiss it because it doesn't fit within our conventional scientific model is absolutely doing an injustice to a quality of experience that people have been living with for millennia.
So the science in Dan Brown's book might be light years ahead of the real noetic sciences. Where else does the fact not live up to the fiction? As we've seen, Dan Brown set his thriller in a world of both fact and possibility. Chambers of reflection do exist, but not in the sub-basement of the Capitol building. The government did fund research into the power of the mind, but not at the Smithsonian. The severed hand was based on an actual legend. And it is true that the U.S. Capitol building has a mural with George Washington transforming into a godlike figure. We've also seen that aspects of Dan Brown's description of a hidden Washington are based on actual people, locations, and events. The city does have references to ancient civilizations. The Scottish Rite Temple does exist. It does feature two 17-ton sphinxes out front and an unfinished pyramid on top. The interior really has a huge temple with a skylight mimicking the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, and two bodies buried inside. The novel's depiction of the secret symbols found in the city's layout has fascinated symbologists and conspiracy theorists around the world. The cornerstone of the Washington Monument does contain a Bible, and the Latin words Laus Deo, meaning praise God, are written on its capstone. The book's assertion that our founding fathers believed in astrology is true. The White House, Capitol, and Washington Monument are aligned according to the stars, and their cornerstones were all laid out under the same astrological sign, Virgo. And the National Cathedral contains 10 stones from Mount Sinai, a small rock from the moon, and a gargoyle shaped like Darth Vader. We've also learned that the Masons are a real organization, and that their secretive nature has generated controversy. But it's also true the book obscured many of their rituals and symbols. One example is its use of the double-headed phoenix on the cover. The real Masonic symbol is a double-headed eagle.
Take your right hand, place it above.
Another Masonic secret alluded to but not portrayed in the book is the chain of union. This ritual symbolizes the union of mind, spirit, and body across the universe. The transformation from the one to the all.
So mote it be.
This ceremony uses the power of group consciousness to create change.
When you have a number of people focused on a specific ritual, a ritual that they've seen performed maybe hundreds of times before, one would expect from a noetic science perspective, you are going to see some kind of change effected. And that really is the big religious subtext of this book, the idea that apotheosis is possible.
Why does Dan Brown so captivate his readers with stories featuring codes and ciphers? Maybe it's because throughout history, world events have changed because of secret messages. Secrets that were kept and secrets that were not. A clue in the book involved a unique puzzle created by Benjamin Franklin, one of the most innovative of the Founding Fathers and a Freemason.
Benjamin Franklin was one of a kind. This is a man who single-handedly invented major social institutions like public libraries and the postal service in the colonies, who wrote cogently about political philosophy, was a publisher and published very important documents, and who also was a scientist in an age where science was really just beginning to find its feet. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that he should also engage recreational mathematics, like with the matter of the 8-order Franklin square. Creating magic squares is not easy, and yet he made a little cottage industry out of it, and you'll find the 8-order Franklin square, I believe, in one of his almanacs. So we're talking about someone who is a multifaceted genius and a statesman.
While it's not mentioned in the book, George Washington was almost ruined by a secret plot. During the war, American General Benedict Arnold almost single-handedly lost the war by working with British agents. His scheme was exposed only when American forces captured a British officer carrying a note encrypted with code and invisible ink. In the book, Dan Brown writes of the legend of the Masonic Pyramid and its role in protecting ancient mysteries.
Brown says in The Lost Symbol that the Masons are the last custodians of the ancient mysteries, and that's partially true. The traditions of Freemasonry come from lots and lots of different sources.
These sources include the influential writings of great thinkers such as Isaac Newton and Francis Bacon, as well as the holy books, including the Bible, the Quran, and Bhagavad Gita.
This is something where Dan Brown is historically quite accurate. There were a number of mystery religions in Greece, in Rome, in Egypt. Now, what is it the mystery religions taught? Not to be a joker here, but it's a mystery.
In The Lost Symbol, Brown writes of the Bible's immense power to transform for the better, but also warns against the literal interpretation of its cryptic prose. Our Founding Fathers insisted on a separation of church and state. It is also why the Masons go to such lengths to remove any religious dogma from their rituals and beliefs. The novel